Shana Tova. Every good journey begins with a single step. And when it comes to journeys involving rabbis, that first step is often a story. So as a rabbi in training, let me begin by telling you a story. I'm 3 years old. I begged and pleaded with my mother to let me sit in the front row of this very sanctuary. In that chair. There. I'm elated. It is one of the most exciting things of my life, save for the last time I begged and pleaded my mother for something relentlessly, which was not that long ago when I wanted to begin ballet lessons after seeing the Nutcracker at SPAC. It's so close that I can almost feel the soft, velvety fabric dressing the Torah scrolls, and that maybe, just maybe, I may be able to finally catch a glimpse of whatever it is back there that makes that beautiful, majestic music. I sit so proudly in that chair right there, waiting patiently. But that's really hard. Anyone who's had a preschooler knows that. And so as soon as my mother turns her back for a moment, like the first time I jumped into a swimming pool unsupervised, up I spring from my seat and I clamber up these steps. It's almost all within reach. I can feel the excitement growing as my hands are shaking and my eyes are alight. I go right up to him in his billowy black robe, knowing that this is the closest I will ever be, and I should take full advantage of it. When I reach him, I do the most logical thing I could possibly do. I wrap my arms around him and give us the biggest possible, best hug I can muster in my tiny little preschooler body. I look up at him and I give him a greeting. Hi, God! I'm not sure you've forgiven me for that to this day, Rabbi Shveen. My mother is mortified. I've never apologized for it. I doubt at this point I ever will. I am banished from my seat, relegated to the innermost seat of however many chairs we need to include all of the family and friends we're sitting with from every Shabbat service from then on, until I'm 13. And I'm finally allowed to return to my seat. I'm pretty sure I've forgotten what it feels like to sit up here. And so after taking a break from standing behind the lectern, I return to my seat in the middle of services, remembering to carefully cross my legs at the ankles, and I am so very nervous. I already messed up reading one of the prayers so very clearly that I'm pretty sure everyone noticed, including my non-Jewish family members. The Torah chanting, comparatively speaking, was super easy. But the worst is still yet to come. That dreaded Haftarah. I take a few shuddering breaths when suddenly a pair of hands descend upon my shoulders and give me a little squeeze. My aunt, Rachel, is sitting behind me, leans forward and whispers in my ear, stealthily. That word has been the bane of my existence for weeks now. It's in here. She took a tent pin and she grasped the mallet. And when he was as fast asleep from exhaustion, she approached him stealthily. As Aunt Rachel's hands remove themselves from their shoulders, my body visibly relaxes as I giggle, knowing that with that one little word, difficult as it may be, everything will all be fine. I'm 23 years old, or rather just past it. I moved back home after undergrad, feeling dejected for not being able to keep a job amidst the recession. I know I'm not alone, but my ego has taken a huge beating and I am self-conscious. I stop and I stare and I look up at these beautiful windows, which my sight has followed my entire childhood, as I strove to seek out all the little surprises and nuances in each pane. I prepared myself for my first application to HUC, and now that I hadn't gotten in, I'm uncertain of what will come next. This was supposed to be the point in my life where everything would change. And this wasn't supposed to happen. I'm looking for a sign, a hint, anything that might explain to me what's going on in my life. I need help. I need answers. And now, here I am again, just shy of 33. And yes, I'm comfortable saying that in front of all of you because there are a great many people in this room who saw me as an infant or a toddler. And that's still my chair. Yet I'm looking at it now with newly clear eyes, as bright as my 3-year-old self, and yet also a little teary like my 23-year-old self. My life, or rather the landmarks of my life, the things and events that made me who I am, I see all of them when I look at that chair. What I found sitting in that chair throughout all these years is how to navigate through those landmarks and what they mean to me. How to string them together to see the narrative that is my life. Whenever I came back to that chair, it meant something. I knew that regardless of how tough things got, when I wasn't sure what was going on in my life, I came back to that chair. That one right there. Even when things didn't make sense, especially when things didn't make sense, that chair was always there. My chair. If I look at the time I spent in that chair, I can track the landmarks of my life. My ups, my downs, where I've been, where I am, and hopefully that will prepare me for where I might be going next. Each chapter heading, each life point, each marker brings me back here, to this sanctuary, to this space, this chair, and this community. That's my chair. And so many of us, when we come into this space, especially at this time of year, we have our chair. The same seat you always come back to year after year, sometimes for decades or more. Tradition is an old habit. It's comforting to people. But even more than that, when you think about your own life, which is what this time of year is all about for us, which chair is your front row seat? Where do you sit? Where do you find yourself? What are you seeing from your vantage point? Is your chair around your kitchen table, surrounded by good food of one kind or another and the cacophony of joyous family? Is it your favorite row in an airplane, bringing you to exciting new adventures and destinations? Is it a beach chair on the coast of the ocean or a lake by a vacation spot? One of the most powerful pieces of our Jewish calendar is that it keeps track of our time. It encourages us to count and keep track of where we were, where we are, and where we're going. It directs us time and again to go back to our sources, to our texts and to our land, to our spot, to our chair. This time of year, though, it also implores us to return to our true selves. As you think about your chair, you may not find yourself so comfortable with which chair you believe is yours. Maybe you think presently your chair is an office chair stuck behind a desk or a computer, or the harsh metallic feel of a doctor's office due to ongoing medical difficulties, either your own or somebody else's in your family. However, as Judaism gives us the opportunity year after year to return to our true selves, we can use this time to reevaluate that. If your chair is not where you want it to be, what steps can you take to move into a new chair? To redefine your life based on what you see as the landmarks of your life. Rosh HaShanah begins the 10 days of repentance, the days of awe, in Hebrew, the Yamim Noraim. We use this time to attempt to make peace with the difficulties in our lives, the pain and strife that we've caused, to mend the broken pieces in our lives. Yet, sometimes we forget that we also need to reconcile with ourselves as well, in our own lives, for the actions we've committed that brought us to the place we are currently. When we look back on the milestones of the last year of our lives, we know they are not all good. How do we reconcile that? When we look to the location of our chair, the vantage point it provides, do we need to adjust in addition to returning to it? Do we need to say, I'm sorry? Or thank you? Or both? Or something else entirely, like, I'm not ready, or I don't know. When I look at that chair, when I look back on the milestones of my life, here's what I know. No do-over. Regardless of all that has happened, I know that if it weren't for all of those landmarks, good, bad, or indifferent, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be here. Thomas Wolfe once said, "You can't go home again." When I moved to Israel 5 years ago and then on to Los Angeles after that, I wasn't sure I would ever get back to that chair, to this bima, in this way. The gifts this community has continued to give me throughout my life, including the joy of returning back to this bima, this High Holy Day season, the last one before I'm bestowed with the title of Rabbi, is unparalleled. Maybe you can actually go home again. Actually, I think you should always be able to go home again. Come back. Come back home. To your chair. To your space. To yourself. So thank you to that chair. Thank you to this community. Thank you for the word stealthily, and for CBE, and for HUC, and for encounters with God in all the many varied forms it takes. The next time I sit in that chair, not sure where I will be. Physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. But that chair has never let me down. The next time I come back to it, I know there will be a reason for it. The next time you return to your chair, what will the reason be? What lessons does it have to teach you? What will you learn from your chair this year? When you figure it out, I hope you'll let me know. May 5779 be filled with chances for us to learn from each other, from our chairs and their vantage points, from our landmarks, and from ourselves. Shana tova umitsuka tikatevu. May it be a good, sweet, happy new year for all of us.
Lily, I'm glad you came home again. And you never have to apologize because it's not often that anyone called me God. So this is... or ever will. We take up our prayer books once again, and turning now to page 82, we rise